Okay, we are live. God, I always start like that. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Holy Humanist. And happy Good Friday to everyone celebrating. This stream is going out live on Twitter as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, hi to everybody watching on Twitter. And yeah, basically, today we've got another very special guest with us. I recently went onto his channel and had a talk about my journey, which I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about. So today is my turn to return the favor. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Momus Najmi to Holy Humanist. Hi, Momus. It's nice to have you here. Welcome.
Hi there. Nice to be here.
Thank you, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. So happy Good Friday to you. How are you doing? How is everything?
I'm doing pretty well. My in-laws have come from Poland to stay with us for 5 days. So yeah,
Oh,
we're having
lovely.
fun.
Yes,
Yeah,
I saw actually what you cooked them up for dinner. It looked so nice.
yeah. They're
Quite
fasting because they're Catholic, so they're fasting from meat. For
oh,
like,
I
'cause
see.
you're supposed to do that every Friday of the Lent, but especially like Good Friday as well. So
Oh, wow. Okay. No, that was a perfect dish then, if that's the
yeah.
case. I was just thinking when I saw what you sent, that you had made, and I was actually like sitting there stuffing my face with a shawarma. But I was thinking of you, this is
Oh,
probably like your Kuwaiti days. I don't know why, Momus, every like 2 weeks, I have like this intense shawarma craving, and I need it to be satisfied.
I haven't
So
had a shawarma for so long. you know
really,
yeah, because like you're in London, right? So you can get it from there. You can't get it
yeah.
elsewhere. There was some in a town nearby. There was some Lebanese people who started like their vending their stand and stuff like that, and they were selling like authentic shawarmas. For some reason they went out of business, but yeah.
That's wild to me because even in London, sorry, I know the topic's gone on to shawarmas for
Yeah.
a second, but even in
It's
London,
life. Shawarma is
I
life.
shawarma is life, honestly. And that exactly like that perfect shawarma I've been trying to find
Yeah.
in London. And trust me, Momus, it is not an easy feat. So
No,
I haven't
because they
come
say
close
it,
to
but it's not shawarma. So like
it's
most of
not.
the,
There's an issue
yeah,
with the bread. It's not the right chicken cut. The sauces are raw.
exactly.
Anyway, I
Yeah.
I could make a whole stream about this. My issues
Yeah.
with shawarmas. Okay. But honestly, in Paris, I found the most authentic Lebanese shawarma. I
Mm,
could not fault it.
yeah.
But okay. Anyway, let's get serious for a second. So, Momus, thank you for agreeing to do this. Obviously, it's always good to hear somebody's journey out of Islam, and also wherever they kind of land up after leaving Islam. It's always interesting because, as we always say, we're not a monolith, and everybody has their own unique journey.
Mm.
So, yeah, just to kind of introduce yourself to my audience, if you'd be like kind enough, just kind of some context into, I guess, how you were raised, where, I know you were born in Egypt and then you moved to Kuwait. But yeah, if you can kind of in a nutshell just give us the kind of upbringing that you had and the environment you were raised in.
So I was raised by wolves in a jungle. No, that's the story of Tarzan, isn't it? No, actually, I was actually born in Kuwait. So,
Oh, right.
well,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah.
my mistake.
No, I saw it, saw it. So I was born in Kuwait, a long time ago now, and yeah, my parents were like moderate Muslims, and so were my wider family. Sort of like people who thought like religion should be kept personal, sort of a people. I was 4 years old when the Gulf War happened, so I was there as well. And we traveled to Pakistan since my parents are from Pakistan, so that gives that context as well. Um, and then we went back to Kuwait, so I lived there till I was 15 years old, and then I lived in Pakistan for 10 years, and that was enough, I think so. And then I came to England, and when I was in Pakistan, that's when I started leaving the religion. Also, like I'm not sure if it was just because of Pakistan, but it was that age as well. Anyways, from the age of 16 to 22, I took like 6 years researching and everything. And it's not like you said, like everyone's journey is a bit different. I wasn't forced to leave the religion. There was no compulsion for me to leave the religion. I could have just pretended to be like moderate, There was no there was no restriction. I could do whatever the hell I wanted, which everyone in the West was doing as well. But it was a moral decision that I took after a lot of research, that it's not an ideology that I can associate with.
Right, yeah. And when you say that obviously, there was no compulsion in you leaving, obviously, I'm guessing it's because you had it quite easy, even within the fold of Islam.
Yeah.
Guessing there wasn't much pressure to, I mean, was there to like pray and to keep all the fasts in
Mm,
Ramadan and things like that? Because as a man, anyway, you have it a little bit more
yeah.
easy, I'd
Yeah.
say, than a woman anyway. But
Mm.
yeah, was it kind of forced anything, or were you just left to your own devices?
Um, I wouldn't say. See, the thing is, like, easy is obviously relative to the other person, right? So it would be
Sure.
easier relative to a woman leaving, because, like we discussed this before as well, for a woman, it's near to impossible to leave Islam because there's just not enough avenues for them to exercise their rights as human beings, or their freedoms. Their freedoms are very much attached to their families. Whereas a man, like, can exercise those rights quite freely, and there was obviously pressure from the community where I was and stuff, and there were expectations. There was also the expectation of the wider family as well, because there's a lot of scholarly people in our family, like wider family, and there's some Sufis that have been in our family as well and stuff. So it is widely, it is a very religious family. So leaving, I don't think so anyone has left in my all of my wider family and stuff. So probably just me and my brother. So I'm not sure, like, it was difficult for me. There wasn't any compulsion from the immediate family, I think, so that's what made it easier. So, you know yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because it's so relative, isn't it? Like, one,
Yeah,
I can't feel the same feelings that I was back then. So I think so. A lot
yeah,
of the pressure that I put was myself putting pressure on myself, right? Because I would say I was a bit more religious, but maybe not bit more religious, but knowing of the religion more than my parents. So
right.
that's why it was harder for me.
And was that out of your own curiosity that you knew more? Like, did you research more into Islam out of, just your own curiosity or wanting to get closer to the deen or the religion or
At the start, it wasn't, right. So at the start, like, I was 8 years old when I finished 8 years old when I finished Quran the first time and stuff.
yeah,
So there was always like this religious you know uh, teachings that were given to us, even though my parents might not be that religious, but they gave us that sort of education. And then that education also comes from your neighbors and your community, and then your school as well. So I went to an international school of Pakistan in Kuwait. So I didn't went to a Kuwaiti school, and I didn't went to an American school, but I went to a Pakistani sort of school within Kuwait. So over there, obviously, there were international teachers and stuff. Like, there were some British teachers and so on and on. But the curriculum was in a way in line with Pakistan's curriculum, right? So it had a lot of Islamic studies and stuff like that as well. So even if no anyone was not curious, they would be told about it, right? And then they would be constantly going to the mosque and stuff like that, because people usually do when they are in, like, Arabic countries, non Arabs when they're in Arabic countries, because they're trying to, like, especially Pakistanis, because Pakistanis also want to be Arabis all the time. So they want to prove to them that, oh no, I'm a better Muslim than you, or I'm as much of a Muslim as you are. Whereas Arabs don't really care much about the religion as much as the Pakistanis do. So yeah, I think so
so
there
do you
was
think
that
that time,
contrast.
yeah, yeah, sorry. So, and did that shape you then a lot of your time in Kuwait? Do you think seeing this and like just the way that religion was playing out in Kuwait, as a
Mm,
young boy, did that shape your views on Islam?
I would say so, because in Kuwait the religion was very moderate, right? Because Kuwait is very Americanized. It's like Dubai, like a smaller city of Dubai, sort of a thing. So it's very Americanized. There's no compulsion from anyone. You just do what you want, sort of a thing. So that sort of shaped me to be more of like an more American in my outlook, more Western in my outlook growing up. Right? But it doesn't give you that connection to the West, because you, especially when you are a non-Kuwaiti and then a non-Arab living in Kuwait, where the Kuwaitis don't actually integrate with you, like they don't want you between them, right? So you don't really mingle with them, so you don't form a connection with the country itself. So what happens is, like, you try to create connection with the Pakistani diaspora over there, right? And the problem with that is, as you know, a Pakistani culture is not a singular culture. We have different ethnicities over there. All right, so we were the Urdu speaking people over there, whereas many others were from Punjab and those areas, right? So the common theme to connect with is also Islam for Pakistanis, right? So that's where you start getting more indoctrinated into the religion. But I think so. I had an affinity with trying to find something like a connection with something more than just the world. You know, I was always
Right.
curious. Like as a kid, like I wanted that connection. Since the only connection was shown to me at that age was Islam, so I tried to find it within it. Right, but as you grow older, you interact with different parts of the religion, right? So the more you understanding, and the more that you can understand those things, right? When you're 8, 9, and 10-year old, you can't even understand the concept of sex slaves because you don't understand the concept of sex, at least in my days.
Sure.
Now
Mm.
now
No,
kids are,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, so yeah, of course that makes sense because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying there as well. Not that I was exposed to the Pakistani diaspora as much. I'm relating my experience in Dubai, but I do see what you mean. Like, it kind of your identity in a way is like you've got so many different angles to look out for because you are in this melting pot. You're one of so many different like types of I guess your variation of all these ethnicities at that age. So this is why I like speaking to people who have also traveled and lived in various places because I can see how all of their experience wherever they've lived kind of shapes part of their personality even to this day. And at some level, like that did affect you as a child and the way you saw Islam and like
Mm,
just the mosque experiences. And as you said, yes, this is a massive problem that Muslims I find from the subcontinent have to kind of show their religion or their piety even more than Arabs because of that distance they feel towards Islam. Because obviously, Islam, everything is done in Arabic and Saudi Arabia is the homeland for it.
mm,
So I feel like subcontinent Muslims have to try, or they feel like they have to try that extra bit harder. And as you said, yeah, even in London, you see a lot of South Asians and they're wearing the Arabic thobe, the thobe, like the hat,
yeah.
and the thobe is like above their ankles, like the same way that the Prophet would. And they're using a lot more Arabic jargon when they speak. So half of what they say is just going to be, mashallah, alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
subhanallah, and as much as they use Arabic, as much as they can, they try and use that. So that is definitely something, and you also see that play out in the Middle East. It's interesting
Mm,
how you see it play out everywhere there are Muslims from South Asia. But so then, Momus, what was it, as you said, that, you know, nobody forced you to leave? It was an independent decision, which, yeah, I don't think anybody forces anyone to leave Islam. I
yeah.
wish somebody forced me to
Yeah.
leave Islam, and they were okay with it. But,
No, but like
um,
circumstances sometimes, like in your case, right?
oh,
Cir-
circumstances do, yeah,
right. So it
absolutely.
might not be someone doing it, or you can still stay in the religion, but circumstances push you to examine, sort of a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it seems like, oh, women have the really hard end of the stick here, and
Mm,
there's circumstantially they get pushed away from Islam, which is ordinarily true, but it's just as valid to like intellectually come to the
yeah.
conclusion that Islam is false or have,
Mm.
scientific grounds or moral grounds or whatever have you. But what was it for you, Momus? What were your main contentions with Islam when you were a Muslim?
Um, I would say like, so okay, there were triggers, right? So there were triggers that led me to start um researching more. I think so. The first trigger was a very long time ago. I was very young. I think so. I was 10ish or like around that age or something, and I was in school. Um, and they were it's very silly. So they were talking about the prophet Dawood, yeah, and it's spelled like Dawood, right? So I was just making fun of that, right? Because some movie I was watching, I was like just doing like Dawood, you know, and the is the a friend of mine who was sitting right next to me, he scared me so much, like, how dare you do that, like, you'll burn in hell for making fun of blah blah. I was like, dude, it's just a joke. It's just a name, like, what's the
Yeah.
problem, right? And that was a trigger, that was a subconscious trigger that I didn't realize till I actually started examining the whole context of why it happened, right? Is that fair that you are not free, right? So that got me straight away. That was a very very big trigger for me. It's like, when you're not free to exercise your own thoughts, it's sort of like, well, who are you to, you know if I have a problem, I'll deal with Allah with it, right? So who the hell are you?
Or Allah will deal with me by
Yeah,
himself.
exactly, like,
Yeah.
like, whatever. Who the hell are you? And I was taught that as well when I was growing up, like, your relationship with Allah is personal, so nobody can actually tell you what to do or what not to do. So that is a very wrong version of Islam, probably, that was told to me.
Yeah.
A very liberal sort of version, which was still telling me to adhere to the commandments of Allah, edicts of Allah, but then also telling me like your relationship with is personal. And I later found out that that's my parents' version of Islam, and that's how they deal with it, right? And that's not really the actual version of it. I think so. The second major, the biggest trigger that came was 9/11, because I was 15 years old when that happened. And when I went to the school, um, the next day, or like within the days, I can never remember that because it was a long time ago. We used to have like this school assembly when the all the different classes used to, like, whatever, do an assembly and get together, do that stupid exercises that you have in the morning. And there was our principal, the head of the school, and she announced that, oh, this has been an attack on America. We have done an attack on our enemy, and she led the cheers for it and blah blah stuff like that. Now I was aware that something had happened, like, and I was aware that the innocents have died in that process as well, right? So I was pretty much shielded from it because my mom didn't tell us properly, but I knew that something had happened like that. So everyone was cheering the fact that innocent people have died because they're the enemies, right? They're the Americans, they are the Gora people, so they have killed them, right? And I was just looking at everyone. I was like, what is this, you know? And that just shook me. That was like, well, either none of them knows Islam, or maybe perhaps I don't know Islam. So that was a very big trigger that started my journey into, like, 15 years old. It took me a year to, like, start actually researching and looking more into it, because I spent a bit of time, like, being more religious after that experience, because I was trying to affirm something that was shaken.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was
So
like,
9/11 actually pushed you to be
yeah.
more religious, more
Yeah, so I
devout.
was like, no, no, they don't know. I know the religion properly. They are
Yeah.
actually, they don't know this. Like, they are being. So that led me, but more and more triggers started happening. When events started happening, so I started looking into it, and I started finding out that I was unaware of the religion, and
Right.
they are consistent with their emotions are consistent with what the religion actually teaches them.
Wow, Momus, that's really interesting because your story, honestly, the fabric of it is so similar to mine, and it just goes to show you, because my parents were quite liberal in their thinking as well, and so they instilled this very, very similar thing to you, that if you're doing something, it's between you and God personally. You don't need to, be held accountable to us
Mm,
really, or to the mosque or to anything. And so I went with that, and that's why it was very easy for me. after 9/11, along with my parents, we kind of slipped into the more Sufi net.
Mm-hmm.
But exactly what you were saying as well, like because what you did after 9/11, I think, was a knee-jerk reaction to try and defend Islam from the atrocity that just happened, apparently in the name
Mm.
of it. In the same way that after what I had experienced in Dubai, I got back to England and I was trying to save face, like,
Mm.
for Allah, for the Quran, or for Sharia.
Yeah.
And in doing so, as you said, in trying to get, like get more like stronger in your conviction or find reasons to defend it or be able to defend it, more and more triggers are, I guess, buttons are pushed and questions are like more and more questions are unraveled, and that's a very, very slippery slope, especially when you've got access to the internet. So
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
how
now
was
it's
that research?
easier. Now it's
Oh,
easier, right? So 50, that would be like early 2000s when I was it? Probably not. Yeah, early 2000s, right? 2001 or so,
mhm,
like, yeah, we went, that's when 9/11 happened in it. 2001 or whatever. We still didn't have, we had internet, but those dial-ups and stuff like that, especially in Pakistan, the whole family had one computer, right? So you had to have your time to get on the computer and stuff as well.
yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, so you can't, like, your research is very limited, like how you can research and stuff, and it's not like in the West, right? I was in Pakistan. It, it was more of a third world country than it is now, so the facilities were not the same. It's not as if I can go to the library and do research as openly as possible. But there was always like this center in Karachi. I can't remember what it's called now. Sadr, I think so. Sadr, like, it's a center in Karachi, where all the markets and stuff like that are, and there's a lot of bookshops and stuff. Sometimes those bookshops actually contain books which are banned, right? You can find certain, because they smuggle
okay.
certain books and stuff, right? So I used to hunt sometimes, like, books from there as well. But you actually don't need to. You don't need to research from any banned books anyways about Islam. You just need to research about Islam from the Muslims. You know, just get the Quran, start reading it, with translation, and not just with translation, with actually explanation as well of the translation, and the events, the preceding events to to each surah as well. Right, that's all you need to do. And once you start doing it, if you have a mind, and if you're not like so dogmatic, then you start seeing the mentality of Muhammad, right? And that's where it all hinges to, because you can't. If people try to separate Muhammad from the Quran, or from Islam itself sometimes as well, because they know that he has a lot of problems, right? But you can't, because he's the one revealing the Quran to you. You can't separate him. Everything that Allah is saying, actually, he's saying it to him, like, this is allowed to
Yeah,
you, sort of a thing. So yeah, I think so. Like, the more it started happening, the more I started researching into it, and I started coming up with certain points that I didn't agree with. And I think so. The main points were Muhammad himself, his marriage to Aisha. I just couldn't, you just can't ignore it, up to a point, if you're a good person. And the fact that, you're allowed to lie, I couldn't I couldn't understand that properly as well. Like, I can
yeah,
understand that, but I just couldn't understand how a god would do that. Because for me, like, the god was very, like we talked before, like, on our episode before. God for me was very Christian in that sense,
mm,
because I had a very Christian sense of a god, compared to Allah. So I didn't understand that how a god can tell you that you can lie about your faith when your life is in danger, right? So I was like, now God is supposed to be unreasonable. God is supposed to be so unreasonable that he should expect you not to lie. And then when you're in danger, then you do lie, but then you repent and you ask for salvation, right? Because Otherwise it's not a god. It's like it's being very reasonable, it's being very tactful. It's not a, like, it's just, it just gives off bad feelings, like there's something else going on. It's more of a
Deceit.
man-made religion in that sense.
Yeah, and again, this links back to Allah being one of the best deceivers, and it's
Yeah.
deceit, and it's allowing deceit into your actions as an individual. And yeah, okay, in certain circumstances to save your life, the way that Islam puts it, I guess sure, you can even say fine.
Well, we
Allah
we
says
can
he
say that, like, we can say that because us humans are flawed, that we will
exactly.
do those things, right? But we shouldn't, like, if we have a god, we can't expect a god to be flawed as well then.
Exactly. And this isn't the first time he messes up,
Mm,
essentially, in Islam, where he, gives you outright permission, like carte blanche to lie
mm,
in these situations. But he's also got mixed up in the Quran with the words of Satan. So he's all, yeah, there's a lot of things that point to this is not any form of benevolent or merciful or God
mm,
that he tries to remind us of after telling us about the torments of hell every few lines. He's like, God is the most merciful, most gracious, most merciful all the time. It doesn't
yeah.
work because of the rest of the content. But you're right. So what did you think? So can you just explain to people a little bit about how you're allowed to lie in Islam and why that's so troublesome?
Okay, yeah, because a lot of people direct it towards takia, right? Like, that's so in Quran, the way you're allowed to lie is when your life is in danger, right? When your life is in danger, to preserve your life, you can lie. And when you're being tortured, then you can lie that you are no longer a Muslim, right? So that they spare you. But as long as you, in your heart, you don't deny Allah, then you can always go back to Allah, right? So you can deny about your faith and say that I'm an ex-Muslim, right? So but actually you're still a Muslim, so you can do that to save your life. But that's the as far as I know, that's the only allowance within Quran that is given specifically for it. What comes after that is some dodgy hadiths and stuff like that, where lying can be for political reasons or not, like, to gain strategic value and stuff like that. And then the concept of taqiyya was built by the Shias when they first started out, because they wanted to safeguard themselves against against Sunnis who were persecuting them for being Shias, because the Sunnis said that you are actually, not of the right religion, and you're creating a wrong sect, and it should not be done. So Shias created taqiyya for themselves, and they made it part of their religion, right? So they practice this more and more and more. So when Islamism came up, we know it came from these grounds of Iran and places like that, where it's more Shia based, right? So that's when taqiyya started getting used by both Sunnis and Shias more, as far as I think, because growing up, the concept of taqiyya was not told to me. I did not have this concept of taqiyya. As far as I knew, the concept was you're allowed to lie to safeguard your life from being tortured and stuff. But even then, it's preferable if you die rather than you lie, right? So that's a form of Islam that was taught to me. So the concept of takia was very alien to me till I came to England and started hearing from people. Right? It took me like till that time, not my time in Kuwait, not my time in Pakistan. I had no idea what takia was. When I came to England, and people started telling me, I said, "What the hell is that? Like, that's not in Islam." And then I, researched it, and I found out, oh, this is what Shias have been doing for so long, right? So
Yeah,
these are the conflating concepts within it. But I had the problem with the original lying anyways, of the lying that God is allowing,
yeah,
permitting to lie. And then, then the Sharia that was built, right? So that's what it is, like, because of ijma and stuff like that. When Sharia law itself was built, or law Sharia was built, um that's where they started putting the lying more, or explaining how much more you can lie, right? So because my immediate family and stuff did not follow Sharia, or did not agree with Sharia, and they did not consider Sharia to be part of Islam. They considered it as a corruption of it. Um, so that's why that form of lying or that form of Sharia I was not aware of it at all. And Sharia uh, is applied within Pakistan, but in even metropolitan cities, nobody knows about it that much.
Yeah, no, exactly. I would say that I was in the same position. Had never heard of taqiyya as a concept, and I had not heard of the permissibility of lying within Sharia, which is very much there,
Hmm.
as somebody rightly mentioned. And again, various
Oh yeah,
also
yeah,
say hadiths which tell you what to do in
yeah.
certain situations and how to lie. So again, it opened my eyes when I first
Hmm.
had access to a real proper free internet coming back to England again. Tiny
Hmm.
things like that make so much difference. Otherwise, I would never have been exposed to such a
Yeah.
concept. And as Momus was saying, it is generally a bit more of a reach for Sunnis to know about it because it was initially something that
Hmm.
was started by Shias. But again, if you don't know much about Islam as a lay Muslim or lay liberal Muslim, you're not going to really
No.
have heard of that, I think. But Momus, I wanted to just ask you go off on a tangent a little bit and ask you, to what extent do you think I would say Islamists like hiding within the myths, to what extent do you think they employ dakia, if at all, in their sphere of politics or their jobs or whatever in the UK?
Oh,
Or
they did. I think so. They do it all the time. The more that you hear them, the more that you hear these dawa boys, right? These dawa boys and these, because jihadis don't do it actually. I found
yeah,
like people who are like jihadis, like who are like those people in Taliban and stuff like that. They actually don't do takia. Takia is mainly done by the Islamists, these dawa boys, right? And they openly do it. They do it as much as they do, like as much as communists do, because that's why they have a very similarity with communists and stuff, because there's a concept within communism as well, like about how they lie about narratives and stuff to to subvert the nations and the peoples, and like displace their actual true nationhood and stuff like that. So I think so these Islamists do a lot. um but it's very funny. Look, I will go on a little bit tangent now. The funny thing is, like, most of the Muslims don't. It feels like most of the Muslims actually don't know Islam itself, or maybe it's my own experience that I'm projecting, right? Because everyone around me was a very devout Muslim, right? But when you actually see jihadis and Islamists, they are actually the ones who are the real Muslims, in a way that they are the ones who are exercising the right intention of that religion, right? So Muhammad was himself a jihadi, but he had other people who would be Islamist as well, like, because he was an Islamist and a jihadi, both things sort of, like, and that's what I find, like, when most people say, like, even most of the conservative Muslims or the moderate Muslims, they don't really know the religion that much. They interact with the religion as much as they have to. They won't really spend their time a lot, especially the non-Arab Muslims as well. Like, they don't read the translation of the Quran, so they don't really know what's written in there or the context of it. They don't have the curiosity, the theological curiosity. They're just following a set of things, a set of traditions that they always do, or it's like this, it's always been like this.
rituals almost, it's like
Yeah,
ritualistic, yeah.
yeah. And because, like, in Islam is all like the rituals don't really have that spiritual aspect of it, so it doesn't really ask you to inquire about it. It just asks you to obey, submit to the will of Allah, and just obey, right? It doesn't There's no trying to reconnect with your spirit or something, or trying to find Allah that way. So I think so this is why a lot of these concepts get muddled up between my head as well, other ex-Muslims as well, or the moderate Muslims or the conservative Muslims, and everyone ends up saying, "Oh yeah, this is not part of Islam." Yep, but you know,
So no
these
true
things are.
Scotsman just all the time then, yeah, because they think their version of Islam is generally
Yeah.
the right Islam. And
Yeah.
Momus, it's reinforced because even like it's Ramadan, right? That picture I tweeted
Mm.
of that lady, I think she's a famous uh, like Islamic teacher in Pakistan. You might know her. I'm sure IW's here. Hi IW. I'm sure IW knows who I'm talking about. She has very, very problematic views. Like I've been told, I don't even want to listen to her, but I'm sure they're extremely problematic. But though even those channels, they propagate. I've seen the way they cherry pick the most loving,
Mm.
peaceful hadiths, and they play them over and over. And sometimes I'm like, where did they find this obscure hadith? Even I've never read it.
Mm.
And sometimes there's like one of the most daif or weak hadiths out there. But then I thought to myself, if this is what they're putting out to, like, I guess the most just like I got moderate Muslims who are
Mm.
out there, then I'd rather them be putting out this version of Islam than,
Mm.
fight, the disbelievers wherever you find them and things like that. Because I guess this in a way keeps them pacified. But then you have the other argument is, yes, they themselves might be pacified, but they are just letting the extremists
Yeah.
or the Islamists carry out their
Yeah.
own agenda for them. So
Yeah.
these people are doing it from their armchairs and they're actually physically
Mm.
out there doing it. Um, so yeah, so then in your mind, would you say that the Dawa gang is using more taqiyya and a softer
Yeah.
approach? Because you're
Yeah.
saying the Islamists and the jihadis, they know what they're doing. And then you're saying
Yeah.
the moderates kind of don't really know what the text really asks of them.
These Dawa boys are Islamists, right? So these are the,
Yeah.
because Islamism is like the political arm, and jihadis are the military arm of Islam, and Islam is political, right? It is a political ideology. So this is why, Islamism is like really close to it, and they have objectives to reach, as Allah has told them. These objectives are, to make everyone a Muslim and blah blah stuff like that. So they're just doing what Allah has told them the best way that they can. They are in a information warfare, basically. That's what they have seen themselves as. That's how they approve the actions of people that committed, because for them they are in a war. It's an information war. And to them, what they justify it by saying, well, we just trying to save your soul because we're trying to make you a Muslim. So, you know they will use takia for that reason, and they won't see anything wrong with it, because the objective that they're trying to reach for them are good objectives. But because it's done so much, i- there's a lot of bad faith actors, as we all know, within it. And they are the ones who have skeletons in their closet, which always is the case. And they try to hide behind that cloak, right? So they become so big within this dawa game and Islamist game, that their own members of the group dare not, like, try to find out what they actually are doing. They would be doing a lot of things which are very un-Islamic, so to speak. But you know that's how they propagate it. But like, most of the takiya is done by these Islamists, these dawa boys, these jihadis and stuff, like the people who are in Taliban. Yes, they're dangerous because they are the one who implement this ideology fully. They don't deal with with takia. You see their press conferences, right? The Taliban government now, the press conferences, they'll be very upfront with what they're doing, and they don't understand why you don't understand them. And we
Yeah,
try to say, but the women's rights, like, what rights? What are you talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it was silly to even believe, to think that they had
Yeah.
changed or this was a
And this
newer.
is the difference. I would say this is the difference people need to see when they see Taliban talking about the same topic, and then put that in context with an Islamist talking about the same topic, the Dawa boys and stuff like that. They'll try to justify it, right? The Islamist will try to justify it. Yeah, but this happened then, and this hadith said this, and this that, like, they'll try to say that the jihadis, like the Talibans and stuff, they will say, yeah, it is what it is.
Guess so. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They'll say, yeah, deal with it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And almost actually, I read somewhere earlier, I think it was somebody tweeted, but it was a very, very good point, or maybe it was left under one of my YouTube posts. But if you go back like maybe 20, 30 years, um, people, or let's say Islamic scholars, and they weren't even out there trying to defend the age of Aisha or come out with
Hmm.
apologetics for it. It's only since the West has taken more of a keen interest in Islam and started to examine it with a critical eye, and all the hadiths and all the Islamic texts are now available online, that they're trying to find ways to, change it or make it more respectable, because it's only through that non-Islamic, or
Hmm.
like, our Western legal lens, that is insanely problematic. What's really scary is that before the West got involved in that way, they were happy for that to remain as it was. And it wasn't a problem to Islam. So these fundamental things that are insanely problematic, and Islam is just scurrying to save face
Yeah,
now because
I would say though, like
it's moved.
it was problematic to certain Muslim countries. It was problematic, I would say, within Pakistan before 20, 30 years ago as well,
Oh, good,
because
good.
they were based on English common law, right? The Pakistani penal code was based on English common law, so the age of consent over there was a bit different, right? So but the more Islamism came within Pakistan, the more Sharia started coming into Pakistan and it changed over 1990, 1970s with General Zia is when the Sharia started coming into the Pakistani law and started overtaking it. And in 1991, I think so, it came fully, right? Since then, they have, even right now, Pakistan has the age of consent as, I think so, 16 or something, but it can't be observed because the Sharia takes precedence, and it says like, well, a father can marry his daughter for it, like, so what are you talking about then? So they can't
Yeah.
they can't force it, but there's a lot of NGOs and stuff like that within Pakistan who are working to inform people like it's not good to marry, like, to not do cousin marriages, to not marry younger girls and stuff like that. But
Just to be
only the
clear, father
educated people will, only the
biological daughter.
educated people yeah, only the educated people will be okay with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't argue against if you're saying you're an Islamic state or Pakistan or any other Islamic state, you just can't argue against it, right? And you will be called a munafiq at the end, and that's it then. If you call a munafiq, if you're seen as a munafiq, then you will have more trouble than an infidel within Pakistan or any other country.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very dangerous place to kind of voice any concerns or any opinions against the Sharia. And again, this is what we see time and time again. I think Pakistan is such a terrible example of when Islam gets too ingrained in into your legal system, in the way that now just trying to pass bills like the anti-domestic violence bill, or
Hmm.
stopping child marriages, these kind of things, forced conversions. It's so
Yeah,
difficult because you have the religious clergy who say no, 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 it's against Islam to pass these things, and they just
yeah,
get stuck in parliament for years, and people are suffering day in day out. And we know who's suffering in Pakistan. It's the minorities, it's women, it's children from minorities, anybody that's not really a Sunni Muslim man. But Momus, coming back to this island,
mhm.
I was going to ask you, so just before we get to kind of your thoughts on what's happening here, I wanted to ask, what was it like though when you did leave Islam, and were you able to tell your family up front? Like, were you able to have a grown up conversation and say, look, I've made this decision. Let's just, let's just agree to coexist in this way. Is that how it went
um,
down, or was
so with my parents, I think so, we haven't had like an open conversation because you don't really, like, it's better not to have a conversation at times, but they're aware that it's not a path that I'm taking anymore, right? Let's just say that, right? That conversation have been had. I don't care about your God, sort of a thing, right? But they also have this sense like, you're on your own journey, and we hope you find your way to God, right? Whichever God that might be. So in that sense, I'm fine with it. But at the same time, I was never close with my parents that much, so it's not that much of a problem for me. um I think so leaving was once it became clear that Islam is all from the mind of a guy who was very flawed, very a sexually depraved person, a deviant, and downright evil, and the constant hatred of the Jews, the constant hatred of the polytheists and stuff. Once it became, it's like, m- how am I more moral than my own prophet? Once it became clear about that, then I was like, well, you know, it was an easy decision. It was like, well, that's it. I can't be, So I went through different phases, like, our version of Sunnism was more closely to Wahhabism, so that's why difficult to leave at the start as well. But I went into that phase of exploring Sufism and stuff like that, but it just comes down to the same bullshit. And anyways, bad coding is bad coding. Like I say, it is bad coding. Islam is bad coding, and it corrupts you. It corrupts your
Yeah.
perspective. It tries to control everything, and it just wasn't in my nature, right? So then I went to a phase of, like, sort of deism, like, there is a god, but maybe there is no religion, sort of a phase, which I'm back again at, actually, funnily enough. Then I went to, like, being agnostic. Then when I left Islam, I became a very militant atheist for a while, right? So, but I didn't find that to be a happy state of being. I think so I was just angry, just, like, lashing out at everything and stuff like that. And it started building a lot of resentment, and it started changing me as a person. And then eventually, like, we going beyond that, but, like, eventually then I left even being an atheist, because I just
Mm.
didn't see that as a viable view, like, worldview for myself, at least for myself. Like, it was just too materialistic and individualistic and stuff. I just wanted more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see that as well. I did a podcast with Derek yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, guys, I co-collabed with Derek again. We just talked about obviously Christianity, Islam, the parallels, but we did discuss this as well. I was mentioning that sometimes an atheistic perspective, even though that's what you get pushed to
Hmm.
when you leave Islam, or maybe it's something that you come to afterwards. Again, everyone's journey is different, but sometimes it seems like a really nihilistic position to
Yeah.
hold to a lot of people, or it's
Yeah.
just not providing them with sufficient
Hmm.
answers. And obviously that's absolutely fine. To each their own. That's why,
Hmm.
as I said, I love to hear where people have gone after Islam, because the hold that Islam has on your mind, once you free yourself of that, that journey in itself has already kind of
Yeah.
rocked your moral compass so
Yeah.
much, given you ideas of what you expect from a deity at the very least,
Yeah.
and how you expect the deity to treat you, and what
I
it
feel
means for
like
your
you start
life.
becoming a human again, right? It's
Absolutely.
sort of like a reawakening as a human being, and
Absolutely.
it's the same. I feel like people who get stuck within communism, right? These are death cults. These are unhuman ideologies which are against, like, your basic being. There
Yeah.
is no other religion, no other ideology that is that corrosive to you, that eats you up from the inside, like, and just makes you into a mouthpiece of
Yeah.
itself, right? That is what I felt. But the something that my mother used to always say was, like, first learn to be an insan, then become a Muslim, right? First learn to be a human, then talk about being a Muslim, right? But
Yeah.
that is not something that most Muslims are taught, or follow. But it does feel like when you leave Islam, it does feel like for a lot of people, like, you start rediscovering, or discovering for the first time, perhaps, where it is to actually think for yourself.
Yeah.
And what happens in that dynamic is, like, most people are not capable of thinking for themselves as well, or not capable to the extent. And this is something that we need to recognize as well. And this is why most people don't leave Islam, because you can't expect them to do that. And which is why I would I advocate for Muslims converting to Christianity, right? Even though like a lot of atheists don't like that, but I like Christianity personally. Through marriage, like I've been open to Christianity, but like my wife is not really into Christianity herself. But because I'm very much
Oh,
into,
wow.
yeah, because I'm very much into mythologies since I was a kid, mythologies and other world
Your wife's not into
religions.
Islam, is she, by any
Sorry.
chance? Your wife's not into Islam, is she, by any chance?
No, 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 no. Yeah,
Good, good,
the
good.
only
Let's keep it.
only reason why she did go out with me all like over 13 years ago now was because she knew that I wasn't a Muslim.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah, she's
Yeah, no.
Polish. They know the problems with Muslims.
Yeah, because the country's taken quite a strong
Yeah,
approach to Muslims,
yeah,
and yeah, I guess the rest of Europe maybe needs to see what went wrong in their own individual respective countries.
yeah.
But no, you're right because that moment that I realized maybe I my moral compass, my parents' moral compass, everyone around me seems to be better than Allah Himself. So
Mm,
again, I would like to say obviously that I do think most the average Muslim that does not know their religion, they genuinely are a human before they are a good
mm,
Muslim. And I take that for what it is because as Momus said, Islam strips the humanity away from somebody
mhm.
if you follow it in the right way, because then you end up like, the Bin Ladens of the world, or
Yeah.
name any terrorist attacker that's, got their true inspiration from what they felt was their God's command or their calling.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I completely hear that, and I can see why it is the right thing where you feel, oh my God, I'm reborn again as a human. I'm
mm.
starting fresh. And ironically, it's like that feeling that Muslims say when you come back from Hajj and you're cleansed like a newborn
Yeah,
baby after doing the pilgrimage. I think a lot of us ex-Muslims, we felt that the day we
yeah.
actively said, like consciously, enough is
Mm,
enough. I reject. Because,
yeah.
obviously you start off with bearing witness
Mm,
naturally. I feel like almost when you internally say, I reject this, I
yeah,
remember I almost said it to myself, like, I want nothing more to do
yeah.
with this religion. The word,
Mm,
the name Allah would give me such bad,
yeah,
vibes. The word
yeah,
Muhammad, all of
yeah.
it would never be the same.
Mm,
But I wanted to ask you, almost just again, just quickly before we come to the UK side of things, because we'll keep this to about an hour and a half, if that's okay with you.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was just going to say, it is your 9/11 reaction was to kind of look into the faith more to defend it. Ours, like my family's, was to kind of go towards more Rumi, Sufism, God is love, love is God. And it was not until I think I was on my quest into researching whether Islam was true that I came across one of Apostate Prophet AP, shout out
Yeah.
to AP's videos when he actually said, I think it was AP, I'm pretty sure, that Sufis were also one of the first people during times of jihad, times of war, to rally up the troops for jihad. And it made a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me because when I looked into the Sufi orders a bit more, and things like even just the hierarchical structure there, and then what
Mm,
they do, it's so heavily like communal and this camaraderie. It is almost like they are the perfect um, kind of like reservoir people to get these troops going and get the call for
mhm.
jihad going. So I can see they would serve a very strong military purpose in that sense, or at least some
Mm.
kind of motivational purpose for the Islamic Caliphate in its heyday. But what were your views on Sufism? Because up until then, I was happy thinking it was genuinely the most relaxed, pacifist, esoteric version of Islam that offered
Yeah.
me the most spirituality. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
That's a Western version of Sufism, I think so, because Sufism is told as if like, oh, it just depends on love and stuff, and it includes everyone into it. And there are some certain sections within Sufism which do cater for that more, where Sikhs and Hindus and other peoples also go to their their temples of the Sufi saints and stuff like that. Um, but Sufism was, as far as I know, Sufism was made after the death of the Prophet. Right after the death of the Prophet, and they were like uh, um they were sort of like they took oath to the Prophet, to the like sort of to Muhammad. So that was problematic anyways itself, because Muhammad is flawed, and then there's a sect within Islam which is completely adhered, or completely, like, taking loyalty from the Prophet, right? And more like they're actually taking the oath to the Prophet in a sense, or stuff like that. At the end, I think so, my view of Sufism, no matter what it is, or no matter what version of that is for every sect within Islam, even Ahmadis, or all of those people as well. Like, bad coding is bad coding, I don't care. This is an evil ideology. No matter how much you want to dress it up, by the end of the day it will still find a way to corrupt you, right? And this is the same with communism, right? Oh, no, 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 but this is socialism. Oh, no, no, this is Marxism, this is Maoism. It's like, it's just corrupt. It's corrupt from the core of it. Karl Marx was a corrupted human being. He was not a good person, right? However sweet it might sound to you, if you are in a certain circumstance, which Islam plays on as well, if you are from the incel community, so to speak, a man, right? Islam appeals to those people then, right? Because you're almost gifted woman in that sense, like, these ideologies plays on people's weaknesses. They don't stand on their own basis and stuff, and that's why they differ from, Christianity or any other religions and stuff. So I think so, like, my view of Sufism was, at the end, it was the same thing. It was an attempt to look into the spiritual side of it, out slightly away from the rules, or not adhering to the rules exactly, especially with the dervishis doing their dance and stuff like that, because, like, the music is haram and stuff, but they're playing music, and they don't really pray like the normal people pray. They're doing their prayers, like, circling the sun with they made the whole, like, the dance and stuff like that. They're trying to find a spiritual side of it, or rather they just go to Christianity. If they actually want spirituality within Abrahamic faith, just become Christian. It's so much easier.
Yeah, I can't second that entirely, but I'm sure it is definitely um I mean, I actually can't comment on
Preferable.
that, to be
The thing is,
honest.
like, it's, the what I was trying to say before as well. Like, I was always interested in mythologies, and so on, and like these religious stories and stuff, because I didn't believe in them as a factual thing, but it's the messages that they're trying to give, like those stories, like what are they trying to teach us, what are they trying to tell us about ourselves inside, right? So the stories within Christianity, if you inspect them, they try to tell you a lot better things than what Islam is trying to do. And the more that you inspect these stories within Christianity, you can see how Islam has bastardized these same stories and taken their context out of it, the actual spiritual understanding out of it, right? Where they have made it incumbent, Islam has made it incumbent that those things actually happened, right? Their whole relevance is that those things actually happen. Whereas when you're reading the Christian mythologies and stuff, it those things might or might not have happened, but either way they're telling you a story, and morals that you can live by, right? So that's a huge difference within Islam. Islam depends on everything actually happened.
Yeah, Islam basically makes, as Hitchens says, makes really big claims for itself. So it doesn't have that leeway that Christianity has, which I think can be a lot more welcoming about Christianity, definitely, and
Mm.
a lot more like Islam doesn't have the same scrutiny as Islam would for those big claims. But again, I think you could come at it with very similar angles from Islam, I guess. But
Yeah.
just to come back away from, I guess, Christianity and spirituality and Islam. Momus, being in the UK, what do you think the government and people like myself and yourself who actually understand the threat that Islam is posing, and then we see, what's happening, like to the point where Islamists have even infiltrated the government and made MPs feel like they should be careful of what they say in the comments, and their opinions are being backed by these people, or they're being the mouthpiece for these people. I mean, this is a serious issue now. Of like, we're having, let's say, Islamist threats seep all the way into UK Parliament. What do you think is the way that we tackle this and we try and reverse what's happened over the past couple of decades?
So I think so. It's like first it's important to understand like the what's happened, right? So the problem is what's happened is like the campaign for Islam is a religion of peace was very powerful, and
Yeah,
that has corrupted people's understanding of the religion for a very long time. And what also happened for a very long time was there was no mass immigration, so those Muslims who were living in Western countries had to behave themselves, right? And they made their religion of peace, right? So that is a major thing, right? So not only that campaign worked, but those people were behaving in a way which was peaceful because they had to behave themselves. Otherwise, the laws would be against them, right? The other thing that has happened as well, people do not understand. People think like, oh, my friend is Muslim, like, oh, he goes for a drink with me, like, blah blah blah, he's fine. But he's not, right? Because he's not a Muslim, first of all. There's no cultural being a cultural Muslim, it doesn't exist. It's just people lying to themselves, basically. you know there's no guarantee if you're a moderate Muslim that your kids will be a moderate Muslim. This is also something people need to understand, but people don't understand that. All that kid has to do is just read the Quran. That's all they have to do, and they won't be moderate anymore. They will be a perfect, you know jihadi or an Islamist. The other thing that has happened for a very long time, I believe, is, I think so, the communist element has been overlooked for a very very long time, and that has infiltrated in not just in education, but it has infiltrated in the courts and everywhere, and in local authorities, in civil service, different elements of it, Maoism or whatever. It has infiltrated, right? So it has infiltrated in a way that it frustrates the system. And then you add the spice of Islamism in the midst of it, which is now taking advantage. Addition to that is that people are not Christian anymore in majority in this country, and most of the people who are Christian do not know their own religion as well, right? And why is that important? That is important because if people are Christian, like proper Christian, they would reject Islam straight away. They would not have interfaith monarchy with Islam, because they would understand that the whole concept of Islam is that it denies the existence of Trinity, right? It denies the whole existence of Christianity itself on what it is based upon. The suffering, the and Jesus coming back, you know, since it's Easter, so people should know about these things. The resurrection of Christ. Muslims don't believe in that, because they believe like, well, Jesus never came, and he's gonna come back again. He's gonna be a Muslim, and he's gonna lead a Muslim army, right? That's what they believe in. Like Jesus is going to fight for them. It's like, well, you really don't understand Jesus then. But this is these are the many reasons that this society has been attacked by, is in not knowing itself and being appeasing to its own enemies for far too long, right? How do we solve this? I don't think so there's a one solution for it. I think so there has to be a cultural movement to revive, because I don't think so there's a political way out of this, at least not now. Because any politician, any political party that will come in will be frustrated by the same Marxist hold that is on our courts and civil service, local governments, whatever. They're still going to frustrate them. You can't change those things. There has to be a cultural movement first, which sort of gets the support of the people, tells people who they are, who they were, you know, uh, connects them, perhaps connects them to the faith. Maybe I have a feeling it might be important for Christianity to have a comeback in that sense if Islam is to be defeated. I don't think so. Liberalism is equipped to deal with an illogical, dogmatic enemy in Islam. I think so is going to overcome it very easily, because people actually, because people are finding these days, I find like a lot of young people are finding that this nihilistic, materialistic world is actually leaving them very dissatisfied, and they're trying to look for something. Now I've heard that a lot of people are going back to the church, which is fine, but then there's a lot of people in the West as well who are going to Islam, right? So that again is another issue that we're dealing with. But what is for certain is that the landscape is showing that people are not satisfied with the view that, oh, there's nothing but themselves, because that sort of makes you, like, black pills you, how they say it, right? Because if it's just me, then anything can happen, and this is how why wokeism has taken control of liberalism, because it's sort of its end point. Like, well, if I'm allowed to be anything, if I can say whatever, if I can be whatever, then why shouldn't I be whatever? Why should I care about the society? I'm just here for a little while, and then I'll be gone. Why should I take care of the generation next to me? I won't even have kids. Oh, it's climate change, let's not have kids because it's going to kill the earth. These sort of ideas are death cults, all towards the political left. And the further left that you go, you see these death cults become more and more and more like, stronger. And that's what Islam does as well. So political wise, I don't think so there's anything. I think so there has to be some sort of cultural movement to revive the culture, to make people not hate their own country first, not hate their own people first, and yeah, and through them get better education to people, away from this wokeness has to be defeated by that cultural movement first. There's a lot of things first that needs to happen before we can have the politicians who will be able to implement the policies that we want, or actually even come up with the policies that to solve these things.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's a very, very tricky situation, and I can't see it there being like, one solution to this at all. In fact, I think it's going to be like years long of a process in the same way that this has happened.
Generation, I think so, yeah.
Uh, exactly. I mean, I struggle to see it even being like lasting, impactful change unless, there are some serious, serious changes enacted now. I really like the approach that Dame Sarah Khan has been taking recently. She's coming down quite, again, it's always nice to see
Mm,
someone, from the same
yeah.
ethnic background coming out and speaking against this. So it's
Mm,
nice to see that her and her sister have been really, really heavily involved with de-radicalization and anti-extremist groups and advising for that, because she grew up in the thick of it, literally. I think I retweeted something today that she commented when she was growing up in Bradford.
mm,
And yeah, she's probably my parents' generation. So growing up in Bradford
yeah.
about 20 odd years ago, she would see kids as young as 13 be radicalized by extremists. And obviously, like that generation is growing up now, and then we're seeing, as we expected, generations to get less and less devout, and obviously more and more assimilated into British culture, and just even feel a little bit more British than they were Muslim first. It's actually panning out in the complete opposite way in
Well,
England, and
bro,
it's
like
like,
I said, like there is no guarantee that a
yeah.
moderate person's kids will be moderate, because they will be lying to themselves, because they will be neither British, neither Muslim. So they have to choose, right? So if they want to be actually British, this people have to realize this as well, because a lot of people say, like, oh, this is a secular country. This is not a secular country. Our head of the state, the king, is the head of the church. This is so not a secular country. So to be British,
But we
actually
have
you have to,
separated church and state, though. Like that's what every Brit should be comfortable in the thing of knowing
we,
that,
we might have done with the laws and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
outside of the law, the country itself is a Christian country, right? So i- this is where the Muslims find themselves in trouble in that sort of a way, because you can't just be good. That's why they have to depend on this inter faith things, because they have to sort of coexist with the churches, right, to have some
Mm,
relevance to the history of Britain, sort of a thing.
mm,
So they are stuck in that way, that to be British, to be actually British, and to do that, in my point of view, I think so they have to leave Islam, because
mm.
Islam will not allow you to give your loyalty to the king, and a king who is the head of the church as well. Like, let's not forget that the king that we all are giving loyalty to is the head of the church. He's not secular in that sense. His office is not secular, right? So
Yeah.
it's a king as well, who it's said like it's a like he has a divine right to rule, right? So these are the
Yeah,
concept
which
that
again
people.
is extremely problematic though.
Yeah, but it's problematic to people who are not Christian, right? People who are Christian, is fine for them. So we have to understand those dynamics as well. But I think so a lot of people can separate those things, but it's hard for Muslims to separate that, because
Mm,
you can be an atheist and say like, oh, I'm just going to affirm to the king and I'm going to follow the king. I don't like, I'm happy living in a Christian culture, but I won't be a Christian myself, right?
yes, and
But
I
for a
absolutely don't believe in
Muslim,
the divine right to
yeah,
rule. Yeah.
yeah. So, but for a Muslim, it's sort of like, if you're doing that, you can't just say, oh yeah, I believe in the king, but you know, like I don't believe in his divine right, because they believe in some divine rights, right? And you cannot give your loyalty to a non-Muslim ruler. So how do they square this? Because you might be in a moderate household, but when you're going to the mosque, the imams are not moderates, and those are the things that are being taught to you, right, away from your households. And if people forget this as well, like in Islam, if your parents are going against the Islam, you're supposed to report them. It's like communism. You should go against your own, because Allah comes first. So
Yeah.
that's why they're
These are the
radicalized so
problems.
easily.
No, for sure. And these are problems that Islam, I think, stops you from being able to fully integrate or assimilate. But my
Mhm.
my point to you was, Momus, is I get what you're saying, but I also think it's unrealistic of us to expect everyone to leave Islam and understand and acknowledge it for what
Yeah.
it is and say, oh, I give my entire loyalty to this king who also, like, again, there's a
Mm.
large portion of, especially the younger generation coming up in the UK, they don't believe that the monarchy should even exist. So
Mm.
there's a lot of issues around that. And again, if you're talking about, yeah, the Christian history of this country, but where we're at now, a lot of, I guess, even the general like demographics that are made up, non-religious is the majority, and it's increasing that way. So where do Muslims, like, how do they fit into modern day Britain? Because I don't see them shedding their religion altogether. And like you're saying, then they're going to their Friday mosque, and they might just be going on Friday, but they're
Yeah.
still hearing that heavily Islamicized, let's say, sermon, or all of that homophobia, anti-Semitism, everything they're
Hmm.
taught. They're still hearing that. But so, is there any hope? Do you think, Mombas? Because I feel like I'm in this
I can't
battle with
see
you
it.
in a way. What can we do?
Yeah. I think so. Like, for a very long time, I've been trying to find it. Like, I just don't see it because of this very reason. Because it might be hope. Let's say you are a Muslim, there might be hope for you if you're moderate, but there is no guarantee your kids would be. So I just don't. I just feel like it's a snake that you're feeding milk to, but you're forgetting that it's still a snake and it will bite you eventually, right? So this is the problem that I see with Islam. I don't think so, and this is like a very hard line to take as well, like which a lot of people are not comfortable taking. Even like, Brits over here are not comfortable taking this. I don't think so Islam has any place in the West. Islam as a
Mm,
whole religion, not Islamists, not jihadists, Islam itself, it just do not have any place. So the least that we can do is do not have things within our laws that favors Muslim.
Mm.
Stop having these Ramadan lights and all that crap, and celebrating a culture of a religion that is so against humanity itself, right? If you want to be a Muslim, go ahead, you can be a Muslim, right? But there's nothing in the laws to favor you. The mosques, I think so, needs to be heavily regulated if they are allowed. No new mosque should be allowed to be built anyways, um, in my opinion. If they are mosques, I think so, they all need to have CCTVs inside, and they need to be regulated. And people will say, oh, what about churches and stuff? Like I said, this is a Christian country. By the end of the day, they have the right to their religion. You are coming as a foreigner, as a foreign ideology into that, so it's up to them how they allow you to exist. And I think so, by that right, they have that, to do it. But I just don't see it. I just don't. I think so. It's going to come to civil wars and conflicts, civil conflicts, because I just don't see a solution that is peaceful in that sense. Because we are not even prepared to deport the extremist Muslims, right, or the extremist hate preachers, the Islamists that are out there, and all these like Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa and all these people and the five pillars themselves. They're allowed to operate when they are saying what their main purposes is. Their main purpose is to convert this country into Islam and bring Sharia. Right. So what are we expecting? What is going to happen? Right. When they're saying that their reason is to subvert what system you have and implement their own system, what are we expecting to happen? So these are the reason why I just don't think that Islam has any place. The more Islam grows, there will be more Islamists. And a lot of people can keep on saying like, oh, but moderate Muslims are fine, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But there's just no guarantee. There's just no guarantee that moderate Muslim will remain moderates. And a lot of these, the actually the proof is there in front of us, right? A lot of these jihadis that went to ISIS and stuff like that are British born Muslims. They are the children of these moderates. So it sort of shows you what will happen.
That's sorry, that's a very, very good point, Momus, because I just want to touch light on my story. I was also growing up here, and my parents were very liberal and moderate. And honestly, I joke around with them saying that if I had stayed here and ironically not moved to Saudi Arabia, I was going down a very like hyper religious path. And obviously, like I'm a woman, so I don't. Hopefully, I would have calmed down in my later years. I would have hoped, but yes, and that's what I was saying in my podcast with Andrew Gold, that having like it took a country like Saudi Arabia where Islam was literally dominating every sphere of life for me to take a backseat. Then when I lived in one of the most cosmopolitan cities in London, I was so insulated and I was drawn to my religion so much. And I honestly like joke that, oh, what if I could have been like the the Nuria Khan of the other side of London or
Hmm.
whatever. It's a very probable fact, and you're right. So I wanted to ask you, so what do you think it is that um, so is it like even if you had a liberal upbringing or like a liberal home environment, is schooling or let's say religious education or going to the mosque, is that enough, or university? I would say I think they're a hotbed for radicalization in the UK. Especially when it comes to the Islamic societies. I'm sorry for liberal Muslims who are joining that, but there are some very dark facets to Islamic societies, particularly when my father was at university here. They would actually, recruit young Muslim men from there. So what do you think it is that there's no guarantee? Is that like how, like, let's say English society now is filled with Islam, even imposing in a way that if you raise a child in a liberal household, there is no guarantee that even just people they're surrounded by at school or Muslim friends or whatever colleagues could have an influence on them? What's it like?
So, I mean, apart from any other influence that can happen to you, like in your community and stuff like that, let's say you don't have a dad or anything like, and you're looking for that male, you know um influence and stuff. That's why um, young boys get radicalized, not just within Islam, like within gangs and stuff like that as well, because they're looking for that person, and a bad person usually takes that role. Those sort of things can happen. Or you're always trying to prove to your people who are older than you, uh, you know prove your merit to them, sort of a thing. So that can radicalize you as well. But I think so the main, lots of things in schools and mosque and whatever. But I think so the main reason why there is no guarantee is because of a person's self, sort of like self exploration as well, right? Because this is what I feel is like happening now anyways. These when you when you don't want this nihilistic sort of materialistic outlook, right? The Westerners are going more towards psychedelics and stuff like that. They're trying to explore something, right? Or a lot of other people, like I said, are going to the church and trying to reconnect, because they're trying to serve something more than themselves. It gives human beings more meaning than just to be individuals. So what happens when you're a Muslim, right? And you have been told about your heritage and stuff like that. Your, let's say your parents might be moderates, right? But they haven't mingled within the British society much, or genetically they haven't mingled with Brits as well, right? So they've kept their heritage intact, so to speak. What happens when you are 16, 17-year old like I was, and try to explore your spirituality? Because like you trying to, you saying you rejecting this nihilistic outlook. It's like, well, there has to be more to life. I'm not just atoms and stuff like that. I need to find my place in the universe, sort of a thing. And you start exploring your religion. That is a point of radicalization. Because if you can't explore it yourself, because usually when you're 16, 15, 17, those say, you look for a mentor to that helps you explore, right? And these dawa boys come in at that point, right? And these dawa boys, these people who are like doing the dawa, they're not telling you everything. They're telling you the sweet spots, right? That gets you going according to the person that you are, right? So if you're like a more of a warrior kind of a man, or something like a kid, they'll tell you about those things, the wars that the Muhammad did and stuff like that. And to show you like he wasn't a pussy and stuff like that, so you you would like cling on
That
to
word.
that more, right? And if you are more intellectual, then they will attack you in a, like they will try to attract you in a different sort of way. So
Yeah, not a fan of that word, just saying, but
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. um so that is the problem that happens, because it's a self exploration that is going to lead these people to either leave Islam. But if they have such a family that might be moderate but very tight knitted family, they can't leave Islam like that, because then they will lose the whole place. Like a lot of people maybe don't understand as well, like when you leave Islam, you kind of are agreeing to leave the whole family. It depends on your family if they're okay with you leaving and still staying in the family. Very few families are like that. Our
Yeah,
families
you
might be like that.
basically become, there's a high probability, a high chance that you'll become a social pariah, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
There's a lot to lose. I wanted to ask you though, Momus, before we kind of draw to a close, and I'll just end with the super chats. But what are your thoughts on IW said one word, reformation? So I have my own personal thoughts on this, but I'd like to get your thoughts. Do you believe Islam can reform? Is it
I
possible? Or Muslims? Or either
No,
or?
I don't. The first thing is like, it's because of Muhammad, nothing can be done, right? You have to reject Muhammad as a perfect human being before reformations can happen. Or you have to go on a whole propaganda machine and then say that whatever has been written about Muhammad is actually a lie, that he didn't marry Aisha, like, at the age of 6. That never happened. Aisha was 21 years old. I've seen somewhere, I think so, some reformers tried to do that. um those are the reformation that will need to happen. It's like, no, Muhammad was not like that, trying to represent Muhammad as a Jesus character, right? And there are some hadiths that might be able to link that with or the sunnah of the prophet and stuff. That's the only way that it can be reformed. And this is something that the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, I see him sort of doing that, right? Where he's saying like all the hadiths are problematic, nothing can be confirmed. So I think so that's an attempt of him trying to do that, because I think so he understands as well, like you cannot reform Islam unless you separate it with the prophet. And that's why I see a problem. You can't separate it with the prophet. He's the one who revealed everything. All the Islamists and the jihadis have gone on for so long affirming the bad things of the prophet and justifying it, right? So now how can, like, all of a sudden people like Ali Taba and these hijab Muhammad hijab and stuff can say, okay, yeah, that actually never happened? They can't. They accept that despite all of the bad things. I think so that's why. And the problem as well is, the main problem is the problem of munafiq, right? The attempt the which is the calling someone a hypocrite within
Yeah.
Islam. I- is a munafiq is a person who says they follow the Islam but don't actually follow all the edicts of Islam. And within Quran it's written, Allah says over there that you might be able to forgive them, but I will never forgive them, right? So Allah is explicitly saying, I will never forgive them. Even through hellfire, He will never forgive them. That's why reform cannot happen.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that exactly because Islam has made those claims for itself, it's eternal, it's timeless, it's infallible, it's verbatim the word of God. How do you go about reforming that? Because as soon as you're changing that and you're editing God's words, you're
Hmm.
acknowledging that God itself, Himself in Islam's theology, is fallible. As you were saying earlier, Momus, you know how he allows you to lie and be deceitful and all of
Hmm.
these kind of clues. It's actually accepting that, and it's getting rid of
Yeah.
the cognitive dissonance and saying, in order to move forward and be part of modern society, we need to reject the words of our God and
Yeah.
reject the ways of our prophet. And I think
Hmm.
it's is it Dan Gibson maybe? Correct. Sorry if I've got
Mm.
the person wrong, but somebody says Islam is the man in the book, and it literally is the
Yeah.
man in the book in that sense. So
Yeah.
it
And
collapses in
it's
itself.
reformation. Is reformation is rejection of Islam and going to Christianity. That, like, within a religious sense, right? Within a religious sense, that's the only way that you can reform Islam. And that's why I see, actually, I've heard like a lot of Muslims who are converting to Christianity. And it's because of these reasons, because that's the only way that you can, once you start rejecting Muhammad or try to take Muhammad out of it, you can clearly see the Quran is not sufficient for anything, and you start seeing the gaps within it. So if you are so inclined to still be connected with Abrahamic faiths, then that's the only reformation. It doesn't need a reformation, it needs a rejection. It needs a rejection, and then you go become Christian if you want to.
Yeah, I think Islam definitely needs that rejection. And again, I was
Mm,
discussing this on Myth Vision. People do find a lot of comfort in Christianity as well, because again, it's a very close uh, sibling or cousin to Islam anyway. So it's a nice fit, and it takes away a lot of the problematic things that come with Muhammad and his personal life, for
mm,
example. And then, obviously, from my perspective, I'd argue that Christianity comes with another host of problems. But I can see why people make that natural move. And
mm.
then again, what were you saying on something about rejection? I was going to ask you. Oh, it completely slipped my mind. Um, yeah. So anyway, rejecting is. Oh yeah, I was going to say actually that the more I think about it, I used to think it was impossible for Islam to reform, but I think we should also maybe remember. I'm still not saying it's possible entirely for Islam
Mm.
to reform, but I'm just thinking that the way that Judaism went through an intense period of debate, dialogue, commentaries, and then its own enlightenment period, essentially when rationality was heavily applied to it, and then they realized what should be applied in daily life and whatnot. And then Christianity went through the same thing. Islam is obviously the youngest of them, and when I say we, I mean like the Muslim Ummah or Islam hasn't faced that level of, like a head on, like a tete-a-tete with the modern era, if you will, or hasn't had that chance to be reformed or face enlightenment. If that was to happen, I think maybe we'd see a different version, hopefully slightly watered down, the snake
Yeah,
defanged,
I don't think
literally.
so. I
But
mean,
again,
it's
I'm
still
not hopeful for
14, yeah,
this.
it's still 1400 years old, right? So it's not
Yeah,
that young of a religion. It's 1400 years is a long time. And if you
it's
see,
true.
this happened during the golden age of Islam. A lot of discussions were had. A lot of people within that context were not like proper Muslims anymore and stuff,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they were discussing. They were still not able to reform the religion, because you technically cannot reform the religion. The thing with
This is what
Christianity
I
is
think.
that they went through a phase where they went back to their original text more, and that's how the reformation for them, right? So the reformation is actually going back to the original text, or going back to the original meaning of things. Islam, the reformation is like going away from the text, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think you could
there's a
argue in
difference
Christian
between them.
The Bible still endorses slavery and things like that. So going back to the text is not essentially like what got us forward all the way. But again, this is a whole different discussion about Christianity and the Enlightenment and how who pushed what and how slavery ended and how we got to where we are and the scientific revolution and all of that. But I agree with you. When it comes to Islam, it's not the same beast in the sense that, at least with Judaism, even like their sources, that a lot of them are commentaries. The Bible is the inspired word of God. The Quran takes itself a notch higher. So how do you reform something when you're banging your head against a brick wall where this thing says, I am perfect
Yeah,
as I
and
am
I'm
at
the
the
word
moment?
of God. This is the word of God, right? Bible is like the stories and stuff like that, sort of Judaism, like you said as well. And Judaism encourages doubt a lot as well within the religion. So you're supposed to question things and doubt and stuff, and that's how you strengthen your faith, by questioning and stuff like that. You know, it just, yeah, I
And
think so
Islam
that
is
Islam
the
has
opposite, I
had,
think.
I mean, Islam has had its time, for me,
Oh,
that it's had 1400 years. If it had to, it just doesn't have a reason to reform. Why would it reform? It wants to conquer the world. What do you think it wants to reform to? Are
exactly.
Pakistanis happy with Pakistan? No, they want to conquer the world, because their country is shit, right? It's, the only people who are happy with Islam are the people in Dubai, or like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, and they're the ones who don't want to conquer the world because they have a lot of richness, right? Let's say all the oils dry up in the next 50 years. What would they want to do then? They were like, well, let's conquer the world. Let's take what is theirs, because they have more resources and stuff, because we're not rich anymore. So the whole concept of Islam depends on how prosperous you are. So during the golden age, because they were prosperous, then they were not like doing those things. They were like, inventing stuff, or trying to invent stuff and stuff, like, stuff like that. But the moment they go like, poor, they just want to attack other people. They don't want to self-reflect. That's why they don't want to reform. It will never reform. And it's really hard realization to come to, that would just not reform, because there's a lot of people's lives at stake with this. The moderate Muslims, and the people who are not Muslims anymore, but still pretending to be, and stuff like that. And even the Muslims who are like Islamists and jihadis as well, they're still human beings. They've been like, trapped into something, and they're wasting their life, and they're going to end up, getting killed, or worse things like happening to themselves. It's not a good outcome, even for like an extremist. Like, I can't, you know yeah, I don't know. I don't think so it will reform.
Yeah, no, I'm not holding my breath for it to
No.
reform as well. I'm hoping that, the avalanche of apostasy, as we like to say, or the
Mm.
number of ex-Muslims will just continue. And as that hadith says, that Islam started out as something weird, it will end as something weird between two mosques, like a snake crawling back into its hole.
Yeah.
That's my aim for Islam. But anybody in the chat, if you've got any questions for Momus, now is the time to get them in the next 2 minutes, preferably, please. And then I'll just go through some super chats, and yeah, we'll get to any questions if there's any, and then we'll wind up. But yeah, thank you so much, Momus. I know we could go on for ages and ages, so I
Yeah.
did want to cap this so we keep people's attention. I know I lose attention after an hour and a half. um, Sorry, let's start here. A-Boy, thank you so much for your super chat and support. A-Boy saying, love your videos and articulation, Nuria. Need to get your stuff out to more Muslimas, especially. God bless you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will do my best. I'm trying to be back in the game a lot more. So yes, watch this space and please share my videos with as many Muslim women as you know. Obviously ones that, are willing to hear this
Listen,
out,
yeah.
obviously. At your own discretion, please. Oh yeah, sorry, this was just the question, so people were aware. Momus, could you just say what sect of Islam you belong to?
Um, I actually don't properly, understand that point as well, because
Just generally, like you don't have to go into
I
the
think so. It was
Pakistani
close to
regulations.
Wahhabism. Yeah, because I was just thinking it was close to Wahhabism. Yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
okay. I'm a bit more scared of you now, Momus, than I was. But yeah, so Momus was from like he used to believe in the Wahhabi sect of Islam. I hope that helps. Ronak, thank you so much for your comment. I'm not sure what you meant about did your study. Today I did my study about you, dear Nuria. Much respect. Keep staying the wonder. I'm not sure which study you did about me, but I hope it went well. And thank you so much. I'm really touched by that. That's very sweet. IW, thank you so much for your support. IW is also an active ex-Muslim woman, and she's becoming more and more active in this scene. So please do go and follow her on X. I think it's the same exact handle, and she often does streams in Urdu with Madiha
Mm.
if you speak Urdu. IW, thank you so much for your support and for being here and your questions. I loved your responses in the comments. They were very entertaining. John Stopman, it's been a hot minute. I hope you're well. John is saying, Momus Najmi, I respect you for your bravery, brother. Also, thanks to your efforts, we will change the world slowly but surely. Amen for Momus, 100%.
That
Thank
is the
you,
way.
John.
Slowly.
Slowly wins the race.
Yeah.
Varun was saying, you guys are doing a fantastic job. Infidel, this was a comment I just wanted to highlight. Exactamonte Infidel. This is exactly why they want to keep people, especially women, ignorant. The less we know, the less likely we are to fight
Yeah.
back. Exactly. We'll stay in the fold. We'll keep producing babies.
Mhm.
We won't question. We'll do as we're told. And therefore, Islam continues to progress and win. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just wanted to bring this up again because I'll never miss an opportunity to highlight that Islam has commands about breastfeeding an adult. I'm sorry that's grotesque and disgusting to be part of a religion like that, but it is. If you do speak, I think it's Urdu and Hindi, Nabi Asli has a
Mm.
YouTube channel and he's literally brought the scriptures on this to life. So if
Nice.
you are interested, go ahead and check that out. IW, thank you so much. She's saying, absolutely loved your podcast with Andrew. Yeah, I actually was honored to be asked by Andrew Gold,
Yeah,
his
I really like him. Yeah.
Heretics YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah,
sent
he's
his regards, by the
awesome.
way, because he messaged about it. I forgot to tell you.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, he's awesome. It was really nice meeting him. But yeah, hopefully we'll do something again together soon. But that was wicked. Thank you, IW. And John and Ghost, I'm glad to see you here. Glad you caught us live. John and Ghost, thank you so much again for your support. John and Ghost saying Nuria is Harry versus Voldemort, speaking his name unafraid. Oh, he who cannot be named, Voldemort. Yes, I will say that over and over again. Nuria and the Chamber of Jinns. Oh God, please no. I'm a simple Irish lad. Hope this helps for freedom. Oh, thank you. And honestly, I really want to come to Ireland one day. It's on my bucket list. But thank you, John. Thank you for your support. And yes, I will always say he who cannot be named. Good. Juju had a question. Momus, do you believe there are moderate Western Muslims who would stand against fundamentalism? Oh, that's
Yes.
a nice one.
Yeah. Yes, and they do as well. Like there's a lot of them who are speaking out against as well. But like I said, it doesn't matter because you know who knows, their kids might be the ones who are like doing the suicide bomb the next day. That's why it doesn't
Right,
matter.
right. Um, Okie dokes. Sorry, just getting through these real quick. Bill Sykes was saying the gentleman is spot on. Sorry, Momus, I don't know what this was when you were. I think I maybe said it when you were actually saying it, but there was
Yeah.
probably a lot of things you said that were spot on. But thank you, Bill. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Daniel loves the Christmas coffee mug. Yeah, Christmas all year round in my house. um, Riyad was saying, I love mythologies of dead religions the most. Being sent to Islamic classes was so disappointing in
Yeah.
comparison. I agree. Learning about the Battle of
Mhm.
Uhud and like the,
Yeah.
it was so dry in
Yeah.
comparison.
It's all towards like centered around like how many sex slaves that you can have and how much land that you can. It's very
Booty,
like technical sort of details.
honestly, it's not fun.
No.
Um, IW is saying, Momus, what does he think is the difference between a Pakistani Muslim, a Kuwaiti Muslim, and a British Muslim? I think you've pretty much covered each one of those in our conversation, but if you want to give a quick snapshot.
I don't think so. I can.
Okay. Well, I
I
think
think so. Like
basically,
what would can say, like Kuwaiti Muslim and Pakistani Muslim would be the difference between Kuwaitis actually speak the language that the Quran is in, and Kuwaitis do not care about the religion as much as the Pakistanis do. Pakistanis are wannabe Arabis, most of them, because they just cannot come to terms with the fact that their ethnicity is actually Indian and not Arab. So they will try to find the links as much as they can. So their Pakistani Muslims are more they try to show their Muslimness a bit more than the Arabs do. Arabs don't really care about that. I think so. British Muslim, again, you it depends on what the background is. A British Muslim is not like just a British Muslim unless they're a white British Muslim, and then it depends who converted them. So
oh, but there's British Muslims as well, like that are not white but are British.
no, no. But what I'm saying is like their background depends, right? So if they are
Yeah,
Pakistani British Muslim,
yeah,
then they will be more like the Pakistani Muslims. If they are an Arab British Muslim, so it depends.
yeah. Though I would say there is an element of being like British Muslim is enough of a stereotype where there's a crossover between Arabs, Pakistanis,
Yeah,
Turks, what have you. Like they all do also hang out together and
yeah.
they pretty much share uniform values in a lot
Which
of the
shows
areas
like
that I've
Islam
been.
is not a culture, right? Like that shows that there's differences
Yeah,
between ethnicities and cultures.
exactly. Um, okay, Rune was this is for you, Momus. Rune was
Oh,
saying Mr. Momus is bloody brilliant. What a star. Thank you, Rune, for your support and your lovely comment. Kevin, I agree with you. That's why I just wanted to highlight this. I think atheism may not be a feel good zone, but I guess, yeah, also when you accept it, I guess it is kind of feel good in a way. But you're right. I think what matters is the truth, and I don't see the truth in any religion. So I stay atheist. That's also my personal like conviction is that I will deal with the truth no matter how bitter it is of a pill to swallow, than be, have like a comfort blanket, which I know at the like many times in my life I probably wish I did, but it's just the way my brain is wired. I'd much rather accept the truth no matter how bleak it may seem. Jimmy English was saying, Momo speaking absolute truth. Great guest, Nuria. Thank you so
thanks.
much, Jimmy. Hopefully, we hope to see more of Momus again. Chandra, thank you so much for your super chat and for being here. Feel free to say something anytime you want. Madiha was in the house. Thank you so much, Madiha, for your support and for all the work you're doing. If you do speak Urdu, please go and subscribe to Madiha Talks. She is rocking it in the Urdu speaking world, trying to wake Pakistanis up to the reality of their religion, the importance of education, the things that women are subjected to, and she gets a lot of backlash for it. And when I say backlash, I mean like literal death threats and people trying to equate her to Salman Rushdie and
No.
really, really nasty things. So they're doing everything in their power to make her stop talking. So we got to make sure that, we support her as best we can. But yeah, other than that, Nuria, will you join the effort to reform Islam if there is such a movement? Sure, if you're willing to say, let's chuck 80% of the Quran away and all the hadiths and stuff, we can talk, definitely. I'm not going to say no to progress or reformation. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, everybody, and listening. Momus, thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure my viewers really, really enjoyed it. Bill is saying, thanks, Nuria and Momus, great stream. They will get your name right, Momus, I promise, when you're back once or twice more. Veiled Rose is also in the house. She's also an activist. You can follow her on X and YouTube and TikTok, I believe, doing great work. She's a Bangladeshi ex-Muslim woman, also based in the UK. She's saying, seriously, Nuria, you're rocking it. Your interview with Seth was amazing. You inspire me, especially when things get tough as an activist. And you inspire me as well, Veiled Rose, the way you decided to take the step, show your face. Power in numbers, I'm telling you, we're getting there. So thank you so much for your support. John, it was lovely to see you again. Lucas Liberty, thank you for being an amazing mod. I will let Momus go. Enjoy the rest of your evening with your in-laws. And bye, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Bye, Momus. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.